Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Class Zero Soldiers Podcast, Episode 3. I'm your host, Zero.exe, but you can call me Zero. And as always, I'm joined by my good buddy, Soldier by Night, aka Soul. So, what's new with you, Soldier?
Well, got a nice drink in my hand, some water to stay hydrated. Got done with work. It's pretty nice to have tomorrow off of work here, so I'm kind of looking forward to a 3-day weekend and not to rub it in. But yeah, that's where I'm at. How about you, Zero?
Hey, don't feel a bit too bad. I actually just came off of a 3-day weekend. I took some PTO just to have that extra day, so I know the feeling. It was great. I needed that recharge. I've been playing a lot of Rune Factory 5 lately, actually, so that's kind of been my new thing.
Ooh, yeah, I have not played a Rune Factory game yet. How do you like it?
It's a lot of fun. I can definitely see the appeal of like the Animal Crossing type game where it's just a lot of like micromanagement. And Rune Factory is kind of like that, but with more RPG elements and an anime style. So it's really fun. And the fifth game was reviewed not so great because it was the first game that was 3D, and it's taken its lumps. It doesn't have the best performance, I'll be honest, but the game itself is fun. The music's cool. Combat's a little meh, but thankfully that's not like the biggest part of the game anyway. So once I'm done with this, I think I'm probably going to pick up Rune Factory 4 Special, since that's also on Switch, and see how that is.
Did you ever play through one all the way through?
No, my first Rune Factory game.
I'm sorry if I missed that.
No, I don't think I actually mentioned it. Yeah, this is my first time playing through any Rune Factory game. I was kind of enticed by Best Buy since they had the special edition up pre-order, so I was like, that looks really nice. And like cover art for it looks really good, and that's kind of what drew me in.
Yeah, I still like that you kind of try games out like that, for yourself and form your own opinion because sometimes you just never know. You could read all the reviews and at the end of the day you might like the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not above enjoying a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10 game. When the Switch first came out, we were kind of starving for games. I mean, that's ancient history now, but
When you had Bomberman R,
right.
I mean not that Bomberman R is bad, but
It was pretty bare bones. It was the very bare bones experience, and to Konami's credit, they actually fleshed it out with a bunch more content down the line. But yeah, at launch, it was a pretty basic game. It was just something to play and try out the new hardware and something to break out your shiny new toy for. But yeah, like when the Switch first came out in that first year, outside of Zelda, you wanted to take a break from it, or if you'd already finished it, there was some B and C grade titles here and there, and one of the ones I enjoyed was the Fate game. I can't remember what Fate Extella, I think it was called, Umbral Star. I enjoyed that one. It was just a fun Muso game, killing 100 soldiers at once.
oh cool.
So I mean, I can enjoy games that
Yeah.
aren't like super great.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I mean, I remember playing a lot of those even like when I was growing up too. Like I remember having like a Lego Bionicle game on Game Boy Advance and I was like, okay, this is kind of a cheap little side scroller, but it's got my Bionicles that I liked in the game and it was just like very simple platforming, but it entertained me for a little while. I remember playing like I forget which rally game. It was like a rally racer game, also on GBA, and I'm like, man, this is like something like a family member gets you, and they just give it to you as like a gift, and you're like, oh, I guess I'll play this, and then.
Something they picked up at Rite Aid on the value bin.
Dude, you want to talk about like how about remember the games at like Kohl's where they'd have like
Oh yeah.
they'd have them. You're like, this isn't even a section for these things. Like they just threw them next to like as seen on TV stuff in a corner or something.
Hey, you might get a chance to relive some of those childhood memories with those Game Boy Advance games because we had another leak, and apparently we are going to be getting some Game Boy Advance games on the Nintendo Switch online service. Nintendo is not happy right now because their emulator for Nintendo Switch Online actually leaked. This is like legit info that's verified, kind of like the Nvidia leak, and that's good stuff. They actually even had some very specific games internally that were tested, so I wanted to go over those with you because there's some really interesting titles on that list. But just in terms of GBA coming to NSO, how do you feel about that?
Honestly, it's taken too long.
I agree with you, man. It's what are we 4 years into the online service? I think it came out in 2018.
If you would have told me back then, I would have still believed you. I would have been like, yeah, that sounds like Nintendo.
Taken forever to get anything. Like it took us what, like 2 years to get SNES games, and then another year after that to get N64. But hey, better late than never. And
Yeah.
when the first announcement for the expansion pass came out, everybody kind of scoffed at it. It was like, yeah, that's not really worth it. Well, a couple months later, and they started adding stuff, flesh out the service, including basically any first-party expansion being on there, including the recently added Octo expansion. If you haven't tried that for Splatoon 2, that's now on the service.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really cool. So if you didn't play Octo expansion, you can play it for free if you have the expansion
That's
pass now.
amazing. I might actually try it because I did play the campaign and I liked it, but I wanted more.
You will love Octo expansion. Octo expansion is kind of what everybody had hoped to get from the main campaign in the first place.
Ah,
You're gonna love that
yeah, that's really cool. I'm gonna have to just try it out and download it for myself.
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. But in terms of what's coming to the expansion pass, we do have these Game Boy Advance games listed here, and if I was a betting man, I'd say what we're probably going to get in terms of the service is Game Boy and Game Boy Color games on the regular Nintendo Switch Online.
Mm-hmm.
And then Game Boy Advance would be exclusive to the expansion pack. I think that makes sense. That would be the way I would do it if I was a big suit at Nintendo, just to make sure that they're adding value to both of those. But some of these games, man, I mean, we're talking heavy hitters. F-Zero Maximum Velocity, Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones, Game & Watch Gallery 4, both Golden Sun games. That's a huge W right there.
Absolutely. I actually couldn't believe some of these titles. I'm actually very excited to see additional functionality be introduced into the service along with these hosts, the host of games that we have here. So, like, for instance, Drill Dozer. That cartridge originally came with its own vibration motor. So, I have a modded V1 Switch, and there's emulators that take advantage of that. There's MGBA, which you may have heard of. There's many forms of MGBA. Anyway, the one on there is just fantastic because you can have your Joy-Con vibrate as if you were playing it organically on the original cart. So I'm hoping that we get stuff like that. I think Super Mario, is it the Superstar Saga?
Yeah, Superstar Saga, the RPG.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the ones tested as well.
Right. And I think that's probably it for that kind of like quirky stuff, unless they bring like WarioWare Twisted or something down the line.
It did have WarioWare Inc.
They did have WarioWare Inc. You're right.
Minish Cap was on the list as well, which is awesome. That's one of my favorite 2D Zeldas. One of the other Capcom-produced Zelda games. You mentioned additional functionality like the Drill Dozer being incorporated into the emulator. There's a lot of speculation that we're going to get games like Ruby and Sapphire, Emerald maybe, and they're going to include some way to transfer those over to like Pokemon Home, for example, and that would kind of complete the loop, if you will, of games that had no way of transferring forward. With Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, Silver, and Crystal on the 3DS, they had a way to connect to Pokemon Bank to then transfer up. And so the Game Boy Advance games, unless you have the original cartridge and chain those forward all the way, will have just another way to be able to transfer games up from the third gen. And I would love that. I'd love a chance to replay through Pokemon Emerald again, still have a way to transfer those things up.
It'd be a big deal because the way to preserve all of those right now is such a hassle with hardware. Just as time goes by, hardware becomes just harder to get a hold of and also pricier because of it,
Especially the games, man. Trying to get a copy of like the DS Pokemon games, like you're looking at almost triple digits.
I know. I've looked some of these games up. WarioWare Inc. You brought it up earlier. That's actually a very rare game now. Everybody's kept their copy, and like that game's probably 80 to 100. I would say maybe higher than that. And that's not even complete in box. When you think complete in box, that's a whole other thing. But something I wanted to point out was that Pokemon Pinball also has vibration action there. So that's cool.
I love the Pokemon Pinball game too. So.
It's very fun. Yeah. The Ruby Sapphire?
Yeah, it used a lot of the music from Ruby and Sapphire too, and just the different boards that you could warp to and the bonus stages. That was a fantastic game.
That's the game I wanted to own as a kid that I never got because I thought it was too much for a pinball game, and it never went down because it was Pokemon.
Right.
So I mean, I bought the Game Boy Color one. That was the one that was my jam, and I loved it to death.
Didn't like that one as much. Oh man, I couldn't get into that mainly because with the way the screen was, like if you were in the top half of the board, it would like switch screens, so like you couldn't see the full board at once. That really bugged me. But in its defense, I did play Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire first, so I might have just been spoiled a little bit.
I think you were.
I think so.
Yeah, you had it. You had it good from the
I
start
did.
because it's the widescreen. It's perfect for it. The layout that they have. So something else I want to bring up too before it escapes me is the Mario Party. You've got. I don't see Mario Kart on this list, but it would, or is it on there?
Super Circuit. Yeah, it's on there.
The Super Circuit. It's okay.
Another fantastic game.
So I feel like the online capabilities, like what are we talking here? Because you brought up Pokemon Emerald, that was introduced after Leaf Green and Fire Red, which came with its own little wireless adapter in the box.
I love that little thing. It was so cool.
It was goofy and it hung up on the top of it, and I remember using it in class with a few friends, and we'd all have it in our desks, wirelessly fighting each other like during certain classes, and it was the best. I was like, this is the future.
And it became the future. So yeah, that was awesome. And DS kind of made it obsolete just because it had it built in. But at the time, it was like, whoa, we don't need a link cable anymore. Like that blew my mind as a 10-year-old.
Absolutely. I'm happy that we had those memories.
It's, good times, and of course, playing through Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. That's when I started learning about like effort values. Like it seemed like one of those things because the internet wasn't what it is today. And it was one of those things where you'd hear from your schoolyard buddies, like, yeah, there's this thing where, like, if you fight the same thing over and over again, you can get, like, plus 50 special attack when you level up. And it's like, nah, you're lying. Like, it just seemed like one of those things, but then you'd do it yourself. I'll never forget the first time I leveled up a Mewtwo and got, like, 11 speed in one level up. And I was like, oh my God, this is a real thing.
Oh, yeah. That's when you start seeing how it works. And I mean, EV training back then was such a drag.
Was a chore.
And it started and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it started in third gen.
Yeah, they changed the system because they had something else for Gen 1 and 2 that I still don't fully understand.
It's like DVs, right? IVs and DVs?
Yeah. Thankfully, they didn't keep that, and with any luck, they won't even keep EVs for Gen 8. I'm hoping they kind of keep the Legends Arceus system forward. So much more streamlined.
Absolutely. I really want them to be inspired by that format. I know a lot of people are like, this is just what it needs to be, and that's fine. I can feel that passionately about something new and exciting, especially for Pokemon. But I would hope that they just built on it, because I don't think it's like a flawless format either. I think like even if they come out with like a Legends QRM or however you want to look at it later, which might happen.
I hope.
I same here, but if that does occur, it's like I feel like it'll kind of dwarf PLA in a way. I think they'll do such a great job with the next Legends game. If we get around to that, and it'll be something of a hit.
I hope so. I mean, they've got a lot of things right in Legends Arceus, but as well as it did in reviews and as much fun as fans are having with it, it's very obvious that this is kind of a first step, their first attempt doing things this way. So hopefully they can really build on this.
No. The first step was the Sword and Shield expansion. That was the first step, was the expansion, I think.
I don't know. I guess the wild area, you could even say that, and just distill down to the very basic format of how they decided to approach like open world. The wild area in both the base game and the DLCs were them kind of being like, I guess this is how we would do it in an open world format. So Sword and Shield definitely started some things and they had some good ideas, but Legends Arceus definitely upped the scale of everything and just basically made the whole game like the wild area in Sword and Shield. So whatever happens next, as long as they keep building on it, Pokemon's looking in a good direction for the first time in a long time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm really happy for Pokemon fans, and it's just a nice thing to kind of look forward to, even with Scarlet and Violet coming up, you know. But I guess before we move on, I just wanted to say, you know, we'll have, you know, you brought up Golden Sun earlier. We'll have Mario Golf Advanced Tour, and I love that game. That was such a fun Game Boy Advance title. It's just well put together for, I mean, it's Camelot, right? So you've got lots of the same character models and quirks that the Golden Sun games brought, and then you know you had like a story, and it was amazing on the Game Boy Advance. I was enthused.
Yeah, many people consider the Game Boy Advance game kind of the pinnacle, the gold standard for what the Mario Golf game should be, and pretty much anything that's come out after that has just not lived up to that, especially from the story side of things. I think the closest thing I've seen to it, it's not even a Mario Golf game. A Golf Story was an indie game that came out a couple years ago. It's getting a sequel. That was a lot of fun. It was a golfing RPG game. I I didn't finish it because I think that was one of those games that I lost my save data for when one of my switches got bricked from using a third-party dock before cloud saves were a thing. But it was a fun for the time that I spent in it, and it's a pretty long game too. So it's a lot of good content. You could probably pick it up $10 on the eShop, whatever the case is. But yeah, it's cool to see all these classic games coming to the service. All these Game Boy Advance games. It's one of my favorite eras of gaming, and we had a lot of good hits in there. We talked about Golden Sun, Pokemon, Kingdom Hearts, The Amazing Mirror was also on that list. Tactics Ogre was on there. Wario Land 4, Yoshi's Island. I mean, there's a lot of good games they can pull from to add to the service to really make it something worth the purchase in a lot of people's eyes who maybe were kind of hesitant to spend their money on the expansion pass.
Yeah, there's a good variety. I think you have a little bit of everything. I think the only thing that we're lacking is any kind of fighters, but I don't think the Game Boy Advance had that many fighters. Um, but it's a very balanced list. I was surprised to see something like Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. I guess we're getting Kingdom Hearts on the Switch finally.
Right, a real game that's
Yeah.
on the system. Technically, it's not even on a cartridge because it's the online. So I mean, there's still an asterisk next to it.
What's funny is that had Link battles.
Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, it
It
was the
really?
most underused system. It's the only game that, well, that's not true. I believe the PSP had like an ad hoc, like Wi-Fi arena type of thing that you can play in with another character. But yeah, this was cool for its time because you just link cable connected with another friend who had a copy of Chain of Memories, and you would fight their version of Sora.
Huh.
And see who won and who was the better Sora. So you'd like craft your own deck because of the card system in that game. But like I said from the beginning, I hope that we get additional functionality, and it's not just the games, but it might just be the games, right? Like we can't have our hopes too high.
Even if it is just the games, these are an awesome
Yeah.
library of games to have. But I mean, they did add a
Hmm.
lot of online functionality to the other ROMs. Like we got Mario Kart 64 online. So for those games that had multiplayer originally with the link cable, I think it's a safe bet to assume that they'll at least find a way to get at least two-player multiplayer.
I would hope so because we already have it with the other games. No, do we have it with the yeah, the N64 stuff has it with
Yes,
Mario Kart 64 and everything.
it's the big one. Yeah.
Um I think the Mega Man games, the Mega Man Zero, not Zero 3, but Mega Man Battle Networks, I think those had some as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
And
There's
it's
a lot
funny
of
that
link up.
they have 2 and 5. They chose those very particularly.
Funny. Those are probably two of my favorite ones too. 2 and 5. So I mean, these are just the games that were tested and that were data mined from
That's true.
the emulator. So we don't know if any of these games are coming on here because third-party games are pretty rare on the service as is. And I feel like with those specifically, Capcom's probably cooking up a collection. They love their Mega Man collections, so wouldn't be surprised to see those omitted from the service and then just come out as a collection later on.
I'm okay with that though.
Same.
Honestly, I kind of wish that more of them did come out on their own because I want to own tangible stuff, but that's a whole other conversation. I maybe we can actually talk a little bit about. It'd be kind of cool to have a Sonic Advance game.
Yeah, Sonic Advance Sonic Advance on here would be cool. I love the Advance games. They were very
Me too.
different, and the art style was awesome. I think that was probably one of my favorite art styles for the Sonic franchise. But since we are talking classic games and Sonic specifically, we do got to talk about Sonic Origins. We had a couple different things hit the last couple weeks in terms of news. We had the official art render for Sonic Origins leak on the PlayStation Network, and a couple days later, Sega went ahead and made it official, announced the release date for June 23rd, and they also had a very puzzling, confusing chart for what the Digital Deluxe and the pre-order bonuses also had that kind of stirred up a bit of a controversy. But just to kind of recap what Sonic Origins is, it's basically the first official re-release for Sonic 1, 2, 3, Sonic and Knuckles, and Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and I think Sonic CD is on there as well. And
That's awesome.
it's amazing, and they're the Taxman versions of the game, so they have the widescreen support. They've got other features on there as well, and you can get a bunch of different things with the Digital Deluxe pre-order, like music from some of the other games, like Sonic Spinball, for example.
I don't think I played that one, but I did see the cartridge somewhere growing up.
Sonic Spinball was one of my favorite Sega games, and speaking of Nintendo Switch Online, that was actually added to the Genesis app, so I was able to play through Sonic
What?
Spinball.
I didn't know that. I have it downloaded, but I have not checked it out. Is that a new release to that software, or
Yeah.
has it always been there?
No, it's something they just added in the last batch of updates. So with the Sega Genesis games, they seem to take like a handful of games and every month just kind of dump them.
Oh, cool.
And that was in this most recent Sega Genesis dump. We got Sonic Spinball and a couple other games that I don't remember, but when I saw Sonic Spinball, I was like, "Oh man, this is awesome." So we'll have a way to play that as well as all of the Genesis Sonic games when Origins comes out. It's slated for a June 23rd release date. The game will be $39.99 for the base one, and the digital deluxe is actually only $5 more. So you could get the complete package for 45, which includes things like hard mode missions, character animations in the menu, little extra character animations, and camera controls for the islands. So there's just like extra stuff on there. It's kind of weird those weren't in the base game, and that's kind of where a lot of the controversy came from. That they're kind of it's almost like they're Ubisofting you, nickeling and diming you for everything. But $45 for the full experience isn't bad. I mean, at least they're not going Nintendo and making just ROM dumps of the game and calling it $60.
You're absolutely right. I wonder I wonder how this will sell because I feel like there's a lot of Sonic hype. I mean, we talked about it in the last episode, I believe.
Yeah.
Was it like a little bit in every episode? I don't know. Sonic's huge.
Yeah, movie coming out.
And it's been doing great. Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like it's a good time for that. I feel like Mario kind of takes a lull and a back seat sometimes when they come out. Like we got Odyssey, and then obviously we've got Super Mario 3D World with something like Bowser's Fury. To kind of try new type of waters. You want to talk about maybe a new Mario game being like that? Who knows? But yeah, no, it's cool to see that, and I want to know like what it kind of culminates to. Like are we gonna get a really cool like successor to Sonic Adventure? Not to make it about that, but just some thoughts I had.
For sure, yeah, and we do have Sonic Frontiers to look forward to, so it's going to be awesome to see what comes out of that. It's looking kind of like a Breath of the Wild game with the teaser they showed, and we haven't gotten anything since then except I think they announced it for a holiday release this year. Probably around E3 time we'll get more on that, but I'm looking forward to Origins. I'm absolutely going to get it. The Digital Deluxe. I believe it's the first official re-release for Sonic and Knuckles since like the PC port in 2011 or something like that. I know it's been notorious to get like they were having issues with like the music with the licensing with it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do that. I think they're doing different music for some of those stages that they couldn't like get the rights to. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a weird situation. I'm curious to see it. My favorite part about it is Taxman versions of the games with the widescreen support. You could play as like Tails and Knuckles in Sonic 1, for example. So it's going to be fun to play through that.
Ooh. And then you can do the 2-player, right?
I think so. I don't think it supported it in the Taxman versions on the like the Play
Right.
Store and Apple, but for obvious reasons. But for console release, I can
Yeah.
definitely see that being a thing. I know my son and I were having fun playing Sonic 2 from the Genesis app with the two-player mode where he can control Tails. So it's going to be fun, man. I hope they allow you to be Super Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles in Sonic 1. That's kind of my big hope, since you could do that in all the other games. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a good release either way. $45 for all the Genesis games with the widescreen support and extra stuff in it.
I think that's a worth it deal. And they might add to it. Who knows? Maybe they'll add a few like things. I don't know what kind of DLC. Just extras. Did you ever play 3D Blast?
I think I played part of it. It was just kind of weird for me to play through, but I do know what it like looks like. It's the isometric view. It's a very strange game.
Yeah, though, when I was a kid and I saw that, I was like amazed. I was like, wow, this looks so good. Like, I loved seeing the kind of 3D, like lush forest with the square, like checkered square flooring kind of. It was just so cool to see it like in 3D, because that's what 3D kind of was at that time when that came out. Because we didn't have full on 3D.
Exactly. You had that, and you had like Star Fox on the Super Nintendo to kind of show off like the cutting edge of 3D tech on the 16-bit console. So it was an interesting game to say the least. And who knows, maybe that's one, since it's not in Origins, maybe they dump that on the Genesis Online app later down the road. I wouldn't be surprised. I think that's kind of why they did Spinball the way they did. They got Spinball on there as well as Sonic 2, and that's it. Those are the only Sonic games on the service. So they might use that as a way to let players play the other Sonic games, the spin-offs from the Genesis era, and then the main games.
Right.
That's what they're pushing Origins for.
Ever since you brought up Spinball, I just picked up my Switch Lite and I was like, all right, I'm going to try it. And it's actually quite fun.
It's a fun game, and the music is amazing in it.
Yeah.
It's a short game. There's only 4 levels. But, I mean, back in the day, it was all about trying to not get a game over and start over from the beginning. There is a cheat
Right.
code to stage select, though, so you weren't completely out of luck if you lost before getting to the last stage. But it's a fun little game with the save states and rewind if you really don't want to have that authentic experience of having to start over. We're adults now. We don't have time to do all that. You can get through the game in just a couple hours.
And you have save states, don't forget.
Exactly. So, I mean, with all the modern quality of life features, you could enjoy the full game in about 2-3 hours. I think that's what I spent. I spent out 3 hours on a full playthrough, trying to get every ring as well. There's a bonus if you get every ring in the stages as well.
I did not know that. How about losing them? Do you have to retain them?
The rings?
Yeah. Do you have to keep them or just collect them?
Just collect them. They're more of like a
Okay.
think of like the PS1 era collectathon games, like Spyro and
Yeah.
Mario 64. Like, once you have them, they're just a thing to collect. You don't lose them if you get hit. You can't really get hit in this game. If you fall in lava or get eaten by the little dragon in the first level, and you just die. There's no life system with the ring.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. It is a different game. I think it's funny, like when I started at the stage, I was just playing it a moment ago. They still gave him the ability to look up. Like you can kind of like hold the up on your joystick, and he'll look up like he normally does in the stages that he's featured in. So
And you can spin dash too. So if you're in a section where you're walking as Sonic outside of the pinball sections, you can actually do the classic spin dash, and in one of the levels that's actually necessary to get somewhere. So
hey, that's awesome. I mean, they didn't have to go that far.
it was a great game, man. It was one of my favorites as a kid.
Yeah.
That and Yoshi's Island were 2 of like my top games.
Oh man, that's a classic. I mean, once we get that for Switch, not to go back to that, but I want so many people to play Yoshi's Island. I played it on GBA first, but I know the Super Nintendo version is, heralded as like the better looking one.
I definitely got it on the Game Boy Advance when it came out there, because that was one of my favorites as a kid. And I never owned the cartridge on Super Nintendo, so it was actually the first time I was able to actually play the game. Yoshi's Island is actually on the Super Nintendo Online app, so if you want to play it, that version at least, you can play that one.
Yeah, I think I've seen it. I might have even booted it up. I don't know. Isn't there like a certain voice? Isn't it Yoshi's voice that's like not in the... Yeah, I don't think Yoshi's voice.
The Super Nintendo uses like the sound effects and on the Game Boy Advance remake, and they did this for all the Super Mario Advance games. They use like modern voice clips, like Yoshi's is like the Yoshi story clip where he does the little when he does his flutter
Right.
kick, and like when he does the ground pound, it's the bring
Right.
ha.
Oh, it's charming. I love it. I I miss that when I play the Super Nintendo version, and I've looked up patches and no one's done it, and I'm like, man, do I have to do it like to be happy with this? Probably.
Yeah, a lot of goodies coming for classic gaming upcoming months. But speaking of classic gamings, if you like playing a lot of these PC ports, and if you were a Q2 reserver of the Steam Deck from Valve, I want to check on your emails because a lot of Q2 Steam Decks are actually being sent out now. I myself am one of those Q2 Chads. I got my email a couple days ago and it's getting ready to ship, so I'm super excited to have a Steam Deck in my lap. I actually, just to go back to Sonic, because we're apparently a Sonic podcast full on now. Might as well embrace it. I bought a bunch of Sonic games when they had a big sale of them like 6 months ago on Steam. I think I spent a grand total of like $22.
Woo.
Got like a bunch of the classic ones that are ported, as well as Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Lost Worlds, Sonic Generations. Man, I can't remember which other ones. They basically had all of them on sale, but I bought like one of those bundles that had a bunch of them, and it was like super cheap. So basically, when my Steam Deck gets here, I'm gonna have a bunch of games to play right out of the box. So it's gonna be fun. I can't wait to play with it.
That's so good. I love everything about the Steam Deck, even in the concept and they did a good job with getting anybody like avoiding catering to scalpers. They did a really good. They had such a good system.
Right? Yeah, you had to have a Steam account for like I think 30 days before you could
Yeah.
reserve it or something like that.
Right. Yeah. They did it right. It was great. It's like they learned from all the 1+1 and like just being silly, about invites and trying to block scalpers and stuff. They did a good job, and I don't mean to. I want a V2 of it. I'm part of that crowd, right? I want it to be successful, so I want to support it. But I know it's supported because everybody wants one. So I'm like, okay, it'll be fine. It's kind of like with me in the Analog Pocket, where I like the Analog Pocket, but I don't like it enough to want to like fork out the dough or wait and get on a another list or something. I would rather they improve it or come up with a different design or something. That way, they've worked it out, because this is huge what the Steam Deck can do and what it will continue to do. I mean, all of these just games from the Steam libraries that have optimization for the Steam Deck and have it in mind, not having to tinker with any of the settings. It's such a convenience, and when you're on the go, you don't want to tinker with stuff. You want to just play, and that's why Nintendo and Sony have been successful in the past. You just got these games that work. And that's always been harder for PC. So I know that
Oh yeah,
it's probably been a challenge along the way.
for sure. And I can see where you're coming from with that. A lot of people are kind of on the fence, just waiting for the revised version. It kind of reminds me of when foldable phones started coming out. Everybody thought the concept was cool, but they didn't want to be an early adopter and basically be the beta testers for the real product that's more refined. And that this is definitely a work in progress. I definitely don't recommend getting a Steam Deck for anyone that's not willing to have to go through some of those growing pains, because it's definitely
Right.
still buggy. They're constantly pushing out updates. They're definitely working on it. So it's not something that they're going to ship incomplete and then just, oh, sorry, that's what you're stuck with. You got a $400 paperweight. They're definitely working on it and constantly improving it. So by the time everybody who reserved a Steam Deck gets one in Q3, Q4 of this year, or whenever that is, it's going to be a much better product than it was for the people who got it the first time around in January of this year. But it's going to be fun. I kind of want to play with it and see, what all it can do. It's a perfect product for me to get because it's a competitively priced one, and I don't already have a gaming PC. So it's kind of like almost like a convenience for me to get it because it's like, well, I don't have anything else really to play PC games on, so this will be kind of like a perfect stand-in or a substitute for it.
Oh yeah. I mean, do you have any games that you want us to try right off the bat that you haven't seen any video or coverage on?
Interesting. So there isn't any that I want to see that I haven't seen footage of, but I do have Metal Gear Rising in my library. I definitely
Oh,
want to
cool.
play that. I know that runs really well on
Yeah.
it. And also I want to play Elden Ring on it. I know the settings and stuff for it for Elden Ring run really well on the deck natively, but I'm not actually going to be playing it from the Steam version. I'm going to be playing my Xbox version with the xCloud streaming, which Steam worked closely with Microsoft and Google actually for a browser extension that allowed it to work. So I'm excited to see how the Xbox streaming works because while it works fine on a tablet with an Xbox controller, so much easier just to do it from something like the Steam Deck where it's already built in. So that's probably going to be my biggest use case for the Steam Deck is streaming my games to it when I can't be in the same room as my Xbox. Kind of like what the Wii U did, just slightly better.
Yeah, it'd be a step up. I know it's a bit more unwieldy than something like the Switch, but it does seem ergonomic and comfortable to hold at the very least. I do like the pads, the functionality there with the kind of like a little bit of vibration that follows your movement. I really dig that. That feedback is super cool. Like I talk as if I've felt what it actually feels like, but that's how good the tech is. Like I've seen it in video and I'm like, "Oh, whoa, it's like vibrating while he's." Yeah, I dig it. And I hope that it just is successful.
Yeah, I hope it's successful too, and I think it is. The demand for it seems to be really high, and even though it's kind of an experimental product right now, it's getting a lot of positive buzz. Even though it's very much a work in progress, a beta product, if you will. All I know is the Steam Deck 2 is going to be awesome. The sequel, long-awaited sequel to the Steam Deck, will be an incredible product. But the rest of the show is basically going to be all sequels. Actually, we're going to be talking about some long-awaited sequels to some popular franchises, and we'll start off by talking about my most anticipated game of the year, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and the fact that we got a release date announced.
That's so awesome. I loved the what is it? They kind of switched the release dates between this and Splatoon 3.
Yeah, they haven't announced that's what they did, but it absolutely feels like that because of how they initially like positioned them. They said Splatoon 3 was going to be summer, and we'll definitely talk about that in a little bit here too. And that Xenoblade, that first trailer in the February Direct was slated for September 2022. Well, come to find out that Xenoblade fans got Christmas early, Christmas in July, if you will, because it's going to be releasing July 29th instead of September.
Uh, Only you, Zero. Only you. Nah, it's you and everybody else that's really feeling it. Because I'm sure, everything they've shown is great. I'm sure it'll be great. I I still haven't beaten the second game, and I feel bad, but I'll get around to it, and I'll play the expansion, and I'll even go back to the original game because honestly, I still have Gower Plains just playing in the back of my head sometimes, and I'm like, why? Oh, because it's really good. So I'm excited for the music probably more than even the game because like they knock it out of the park with the music, man.
Always an amazing soundtrack. They got Ace back for the third game, and I believe Yoko Shimomura may be rejoining them as well. I think I read somewhere about that. But the music's going to be great. So just in the clips they've shown, for when they were running down a field, it sounded like a remix of the Gormott theme from Xenoblade 2, with a little bit of Bionis' leg or Gower Plain thrown in there too. So this is the combined world from Xenoblade 1 and 2. So I don't know why this never occurred to me, but obviously we're going to get some like combined remixes of music from similar locations. So like maybe we'll get a remix of some of the later areas like Aerith Sea from Xenoblade 1 mixed with I don't know, like the Cloud Sea main theme from Xenoblade 2 or something. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the music. I'm a fan. And everything they've shown of the combat as well has been really good. They did basically confirm that auto attack canceling is back by showing that when you are doing an auto attack, your character can't move while he does it, like Xenoblade 1 had it, which many people thought was a bad thing. But if you know anything about the intricacies of Xenoblade 2's combat, auto attack canceling was a big part of what really upped the pace of combat for Xenoblade 2. So that is back. But the other big thing is that, again, the theme of merging 1 and 2 together, the movement speed in battle when you are moving around is really fast, very similar to Xenoblade 1. The combat's all about your position relative to the enemy, so movement is important. And the way 2 handled it is you moved slow as molasses when combat started, and as your affinity with your blade grew, you could move a little faster. But even at the highest affinity, you still were moving really, really slow, a lot slower than many players would have liked. So it's awesome that they're kind of taking bits and pieces of both Xenoblade 1 and 2 and giving you the best of both worlds for 3. And I'm excited for it. I'm getting the special edition whenever it is listed, which is a Nintendo Store exclusive, by the way. So if you do want to get the special edition, keep your eyes on Nintendo of America's Twitter. It's a shame, but hey, at least we have a special edition.
Or if this is too far ahead in the future, you know, good luck. Getting it at a good price, maybe.
Yeah, hopefully when this episode comes up, they haven't they haven't listed it on the store. As of the recording, we're still waiting. They have the listing on the website, so if we did get this episode to you in time, you can kind of open up that link to the website and just refresh it every morning. Make sure that you don't miss it. Fingers crossed. Honestly, it's kind of a lackluster special edition. If we're being honest, there isn't a whole lot in it.
I was gonna say nothing that I mean outside of the novelty, because I know you're a more digital guy. Is there anything that really makes you like want to jump the guns there, or is it like just because they make very limited amounts of them?
Mainly just because I love Xenoblade, so I want the special edition for every game. This one, really, the only thing that's this is all you get. You get the game, you get the box, you get a steelbook and an art book. I'm hoping the art book is pretty big. It looks pretty sizable. A lot of like concept art and like character art, which is always fun to see. Like I know when they showed in Xenoblade 2, we had like the prototype versions of Pyra with the long hair, where she had like these little, not quite ponytails, but she had like braids and stuff. So like we get to see kind of what could have been. So that's cool. But overall, I don't expect this special edition to be very expensive, just because there's not a whole lot extra you're getting. If I'm a betting man, I'd say this is probably going to be like $90, just $30 extra for the steelbook and the art book.
So there is no price yet for that.
As far as I'm aware, no. Everything that I've seen on the announcement didn't show a price, and even Nintendo's official website still just says releasing in TBD, to be determined. It is a 250 plus page hardcover art book, so that's cool. That's a lot of pages.
Wow.
That just made it a little more worth for me.
Yeah, and it might raise the price too with that much quality, because usually those are pretty simple. But if it's like got color and everything,
full color, they are full color art book.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's worth it personally. I like what you said with the mixes of like stuff that you were talking about. With Xenoblade, 1, 2, and then where do you think X kind of falls in terms of like gameplay mechanics? Like, do you think that's more of like a spin-off feeling? Do you feel like it took from one more than the other, or how do you feel about that? Because it was designed like around the time when they were making the second one, right?
Yeah, I think when X came out in 2015, I believe it was delayed. Then obviously Xenoblade 2 came out 2 years later. So as they were finishing up on getting X done, they had to have started development for 2. So, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe they ported the engine over to the Switch to work on 2, and that was kind of their starting point, which is kind of why there was a lot of technical hiccups in 2 that they've smoothed out over time with the Torna, the Golden Country, and Definitive Edition later. They were making an engine more suited to the hardware. But X, in terms of gameplay, just kind of feels like the redheaded stepchild. They really haven't referenced it in the story at all, and it's only minor nods here and there. The one thing that I will say does seem like it's kind of similar. One of the gameplay trailers for 3 showed the big mechanic this time around is you can basically fuse with one of your other party members to become this like I don't even want to call it a mech. It looks kind of like the Skells from Xenoblade Chronicles X, maybe. I'm not sure exactly what all the deal is there, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do there. I kind of hope Elma comes back in some way. She was there in the DLC for Xenoblade 2 as a blade that you could get to your party, so I hope they at least carry that forward. That the legacy of X just by letting us see one of the most important characters in the game. Who, honestly, Elma was the protagonist of X, as far as I'm concerned. The nameless, faceless protagonist that you create a character, the silent avatar, if you will. Like Elma was the protagonist, so it'd be nice to see her again.
Yeah, and I wonder how it falls into the story too, because I know that one it has a bit. I don't know. The tech seems a bit more sophisticated for X than the other ones.
Yeah, it's kind of a spin-off game in every aspect of it. You know, the Xenoblade 1 and 2 are definitely more on the fantasy side, whereas X was a lot more
Yeah,
sci-fi. The whole skells and society was a lot civilization was a lot more advanced in X than what appeared to be for 1 and 2. So Xenoblade 3 is set in the future, so maybe they do incorporate some of that. Definitely looks like we're gonna get. We got a lot to look forward to in 3. They've still barely shown us anything, and I'm excited, man. This is gonna be game of the year for me. I can already tell.
yeah. I'm looking forward to it myself. We'll see. We'll see what kind of comes from it. I I'm gonna wait a little bit. I will always take your take. Wait for your take on this type of stuff, just because you're the person who got me into it.
Appreciate that, man. My take is right now, definitely go buy it. Although you're still catching up, so maybe finish those games first, and you might get lucky and catch it on a sale on the eShop or something. But I can already tell the game is going to be worth it. If you like Xenoblade 1 or 2 or both, this is going to be an amazing game. It looks more polished. The visuals are a lot cleaner this time around. It looks like they kind of fixed the whole lower resolution part of it. So it's going to be the culmination of everything Monolith Soft has been working on for the last decades. It's going to be amazing.
Speaking of things that come in threes,
Good things do come in threes.
good things do come in threes. Splatoon 3. Hey, and I think we brought that up just a moment ago. And I think I actually brought that up, and I know that's coming out this year, and that's another one, right? Like, this is a great year for I know those are really big titles for you. And it's funny because I actually, as much as I don't play them all the way through, I do enjoy having a copy and kind of dipping my feet into there. And I hope Splatoon 3 is even better. Like, the fact that we're getting a Splatoon 3 when Splatoon 1 came out only, like, what, 6 years ago?
7. I think it was 2015.
Okay, time, right?
Okay, how does it work?
I don't know. I know it was a huge hype, with the salmon runs and like all the online community that it started to breed, and I know that it's kind of a way for you and even your kid to bond, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, for sure. Splatoon 3 is a day one purchase for us, and just to kind of bow on it, that day one will be September 9th, after it was announced for summer. They're kind of stretching the definition of summer here if they're saying it's still part of the original release window, but it's very funny that it lands on that date, and that's what speculated everyone to say, it sounds like they switched Xenoblade and Splatoon, because Splatoon was supposed to be summer. July 29th feels more like a summer date than September 9th does, and of course that does land in September, which is what Xenoblade 3 was supposed to be, so all the tinfoil hats are coming out and saying maybe they needed more time for this, so they pushed up Xenoblade 3, and it's very funny too, because the Xenoblade Chronicles X was delayed quite a bit during release, and then Xenoblade 2, we thought it was going to be delayed because there was kind of a lull in information, but it did end up releasing within right at the tail end of 2017 in December, so that surprised people that it did come out on time without a delay. And now they're just continuing to level it up by pushing the release date up. So we went from a delay to a surprise release before people thought it would be, and now it's even earlier than what they officially stated the release date would be. But hopefully Splatoon 3 is worth the wait. Just steering away.
It's the best outcome. This is the best outcome.
It's gonna be a wild summer for games. Even just with these two, and we still of course got E3 coming up, so we don't know what else is coming. Hopefully we get Advance Wars somewhere in there. I know that was delayed due to current world events. Maybe summer release for that would be cool too, just to kind of fill it in. Maybe an August release for that would be good. Just something to pad the months out between July and September with these two big hitters. Splatoon 3 will be fun. I like what they showed for the improvements for Salmon Run. I think that's going to really change the game and make it uh, a lot more fun for the cooperative side, being able to pass the golden eggs to teammates and even to the basket, because that was a big issue. Is if you killed a bunch of bosses away from the basket, you couldn't possibly get every single one of those eggs to the basket, because you had to go to the basket, jump it off, because you could only hold one, go back to where the other eggs were, hope none of the other salmonids took them away, and basically if your teammates weren't letting the bosses come near the basket to make it easier, you weren't going to collect all of the eggs. So that alone's a big change.
Yeah, there's no way to actually progress there.
And when you're playing with randoms, it's kind of hard to cooperate. But being able to pass the eggs back and forth shakes it up. We still really don't know much about the multiplayer changes outside of being able to pick your spawn, in terms of like you can choose the exact place you land, and obviously you can't warp to the other side of the map or anything. But it just something to help break up the spawn camping. Like once you got trapped in there, it was really hard to get out. So that's a cool mix-up. And of course, we know absolutely nothing about the single-player mode, which is the biggest mystery going in. And I'm really hoping they build off Octo Expansion. And if they do, Splatoon 3 is going to be a big hit.
Yeah, hopefully they've just gotten the formula. You know, at this point, like they know the Octo expansion was successful enough. It's like, oh, let's just make the core game like that. That's kind of like what, you know, I hope the future has for whatever new Mario game we might get. You know, maybe it's got pieces of Odyssey and Bowser's Fury in it or something. And, you know, I feel like them kind of toying with the DLC. That's what they're doing with the DLCs, in my opinion, where like developer standpoint, like, hey, let's try this out. It's like low risk because it's DLC. You know, see how it's received.
Just don't like it. They just don't buy it. They still a base game type of deal. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's the best way, I think, to really test something out while making money. You know, it's not like it's totally just a risk, and without you know some reward. And I love games that come out right at the end of a console's life. And not that it's, you know, even considered that. It's like considered like half of its life, right, for the Switch. But I feel like it's such an old system that they've been working with for so long.
It's an established system that they've gotten used to. They can bring out the most in it now.
Yeah, we tapped into the power, right? Just like the end of the PS3's lifetime.
Looking really good.
Oh man, it was just amazing, but it took forever to get there. Fortunately, the Switch already had, you know, it was running GameCube games at one point, you know. I think it was like the Chinese market that had that, right? I think it was the Nvidia Shield TV or something like that. You could.
Was it GameCube games or Wii games? Because I know Super Mario Galaxy was one of those games.
I think it was, and I think China got some of those, and I don't think they were released anywhere else. But I mean, please, whatever China can get, I want them to get that, because I'm never jealous for China. I'm like, please expose, enjoy, you know, reap all those benefits. But yeah, it's great to see what kind of games. Like I'm excited about everything we've talked about today. I'd say we pretty much covered everything we wanted to talk about today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for joining me to talk video games. Zero. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Kraken Skulls Gaming, and hit the notification bell to be notified when a new episode drops. Also, feel free to drop a like, dislike it. Just engage with us in the comment section and tell us what you think. Take care, everybody, and happy gaming as always.
Take care.